Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Victory Leaders Lounge. And today I have a guest that I've met a few times. He's awesome, actually, Paul Crick. And I'm going to give his backstory. But I had a phone conversation with him actually, it was a Zoom conversation with him just a couple of weeks ago. And I think we hit it off, and we really got along well. And so I figured might as well bring him on here because he'd be a great person to have a conversation with live. Uh, Paul, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, JJ. That was very generous of you. Thank you. Yes, we did hit it off, and I
We
enjoyed our
did.
last conversation, so I'm looking forward to this one.
Yes. Yes. So do you want to give the audience an introduction? Tell them a little bit about you, what you do, how you got there?
Oh God, there's so many different ways of introducing this. So I'll go for the slightly humorous one, which is I like to say I'm a recovering management consultant and a recovering classical musician. Um, so I spent 20 years in management consultancy, very, very blessed to have a career that took me all over the world, worked with some amazing companies doing work. But in 2007, I'd sort of reached the end of that tether, and it was kind of like, oh gosh, why do I feel the way I do? And that started my journey into coaching. And essentially, I help people through intense periods of transition from A to B. Usually they're emotionally frazzled. Usually they're a little bit lost, looking for a sense of purpose and direction. And usually there have been a number of sensitizing events along the way during their sort of journey through life that they know are creating patterns of thinking, of behavior that aren't helping them, but they haven't figured out yet how to necessarily remove the emotional charge that goes with that, and that's usually what drives behavior. So I do a lot of work in that space with individuals and teams. I help people work together better, basically, to avoid misalignment, miscommunication, and unresolved conflict. There you go. I think that's a good place to start.
Well, that's excellent, and you help people through those transitions. And so, are those transitions from job to job? Are they through stages of life? Are they there in the workplace if they're getting a promotion, or what are your typical clients that you deal with?
So I don't do the promotion thing. I think there's other people. That's not really in my
No, I'm
wheelhouse.
just curious what your
Uh,
business is all about.
so it's all about helping people work together better at an individual level. That's really getting comfortable with yourself. So um, Warren Bennis talks about the idea of, leadership is the same as becoming yourself. It's that simple, and it's also that difficult. So it's working with people, helping them understand how they armor up, understand how they wear masks, and help them navigate a sort of process of reflection and discovery, and decision that says, okay, so how do I want to present myself to the world, and how do I become myself at an individual level? Because that means then I'm in a place where not only am I able to lead myself better, but that means I'm more capable of leading others around me. When it's working together in teams, it's really looking at, so let's do a litmus test of the culture that you have now. And is that the culture you want? What's the gap? And where's the energy in the system for change? And then how do we help you through that? How do we help you self-author that change as a group of individuals collectively to get you where you want to be?
Sure. And you know, I'd like to talk about the transition of going from employee to having your own business. I believe when we were talking before, when you were a management consultant, you worked for a company that took you all over the place and did all
I
that
did.
stuff. And,
Mhm.
and so you decided to it's actually a leap of faith, actually, because there's no real easy way to go and, and start a business and operate on your own and stuff like that. So what brought you to the idea of taking that leap of faith?
To be honest, redundancy. So I'd worked for a global consulting firm for about 7 years, and I think I just got to a point where uh, I was probably overqualified and probably too expensive for a lot of the roles that were being put out onto projects and programs. And there comes a point where you just look at that, and the company, and you came to a mutual agreement that said, we need to separate. We'll help you do that. And there was a lot of good conversations. It was an amicable separation that allowed me to support myself while I figured out, as I threw spaghetti at the wall, trying to figure out what would stick, and where I actually really wanted to be. Then we had that conversation that allowed me to separate and then go through this journey of discovery and realizing, that entrepreneurs do something that's completely, absolutely amazing. I have a profound respect for entrepreneurs that take that leap of faith, because when you're on the inside in the corporate, and until you do it, you don't really understand why people talk the way they do, why they talk about some of the issues they talk about, and you go, "Oh, now I get it. Oh my goodness,
Oh my
wow,
gosh. Yes.
yeah,
Well, and it's interesting when you take that leap of faith, because when you've been a company man basically your whole life, I served a career in the military, you worked for that
mhm,
consultancy firm, and then you were probably with another firm before that. But
mhm,
it's just when you have conversations about starting off on your own, your friends, your family, nobody really understands why you would even do that. And so your whole life comes to trying to find other people that you can actually talk to, that
yeah,
understand why the heck you've gone crazy to go out and do this thing on your own.
yeah,
So, I mean, good on you for that. I mean, I enjoy that
thank
part of it. And once you find that community of people they're almost a support system, it makes it all worth it, because you're all just
you.
trying
Yes,
to go out there and do things and help people. And the ones that aren't, and they're just out there to make a quick buck, well, they're not necessarily the people you want to talk to.
no, well, you pick your peers carefully. You find out who your friends are very, very quickly, your real
Yep.
friends.
Yep.
And those are great lessons to learn, because the sooner you learn those and accept it, the sooner you can get on with discovering what it is, the work that that you want to do, and how that matches what the world wants and is willing to have a value exchange to pay you to do that.
Yeah, because you got to pay the bills at the end of the day. I mean, we all
Yeah,
want to go out there and make a difference, but the money does have to come in, or you can't keep on making that difference. So
yeah,
that's the interesting balance that you have to find when you go out and you want to charge people for your services without having somebody handle the hard part, which is actually the billing, asking for the money, which is the one thing that I've always had a difficult time doing in the last couple of years since I've started my business as well.
hmm I think so. I think, I used to pick up the phone and say, "Hi, it's Paul from XYZ Consulting, global consulting firm," and people will take your call. Whereas if it's, "Hi, it's Paul Crick from the Elevate Partnership," they go, "Who?" And that takes some getting used to, and then you find different ways of, you learn that, cold outreach is actually very difficult. That's not what's working now, so there's a different way. It's much more about networks and relationships. So
Mhm.
uh, all the things that you sort of heard and were taught, you go, "Oh, now I get it. Now I absolutely get it." And
Yep. You
it's
either
a right
sink or swim. Yeah.
it's a rite of passage.
It
It
is.
really is.
It is. And, finding that right network is wonderful. A couple episodes ago, well, it hasn't come up on Spotify, but it is on all my other stations right now. But, I had a conversation with John Hibbs, which we both know very well. And
Oh, I know, John. Yeah,
oh, yeah, he's a great guy. But,
he
he
is.
talked about his Monergy flow. And I
Yeah.
think that really goes along a lot with what you're saying, because when you surround yourself with great people who are doing great things, and then you're changing people's lives that end up being your customers, or acquaintances in the business world, then you're really making the world a better place. And I love the way he briefed that. But I'd like to hear more about your journey. So I know that when we had a conversation, you talked about, um, well, you're also a psychologist, right?
Yeah, kind of accidentally. Um, I reached a point where I, I I sat on the end. So I was in the Hilton Hotel on Edgware Road in London, right in the center of London, and it was after a long day of consulting, on the back of a long few months of consulting, traveling all over Europe for a particular client. And I think I just reached that point where I was tired, uh, and was starting to question what I was doing. And I remember looking at the wall and thinking, is this it? Is this the rest of my life? Because if it is, I'm not sure I want it like this. And I don't know why I feel the way I do, but I know I'm not happy in my bones. And then it becomes difficult because people look at you and say, Paul, you're traveling all over the world. You're working in this job. You're driving this great car. You've got a nice house. You've got a wife that loves you. You've got big holidays. You wear nice clothes. And you kind of go, yeah. And you know what? It doesn't add up to anything. Something is, but I couldn't tell you what. I really couldn't tell you what at the time. And I brought the evening newspaper. So in London, we have a newspaper called the London Evening Standard. And I picked one up in the lobby and taken it up to the room because I thought, oh, I'll skip through and see what's on TV. There'll be something worth watching. And as I flicked through, in one of the corners was a small advertisement for a webinar, a free seminar. And it was in London, and it was like, come for 2 hours, and the title was Get the Life You Deserve. And I went, that's for me. I need to find out what that is. And what it was, well, I learned 2 very valuable lessons. I learned, first of all, there's no such thing as a free seminar.
No.
there's always a hook.
There's always a hook. Yep.
But more importantly, I got introduced to neurolinguistic programming, and that was kind of my entry into psychology, albeit a pop psychology route, and a route that has some challenging perceptions with it, but does an amazing amount of good. If you dip below the surface and look where it came from and the foundations that it was built on.
Mm-hmm.
So that took me in. And of course, you do the qualifications, you do the first set of qualifications, second set of qualifications, you come out and you go, I want to fix the world. And then you start to annoy everyone because you almost become evangelical about it. And it took me a long time to learn about that. But what I also noticed was I was working with clients that the stuff I'd learned in terms of approaches to helping clients wasn't having the impact. And I was questioning in my mind, I wonder why that is. You know, what's going on? Is it me? And of course, I go and talk to fellow practitioners, and they say, no, it's your client. Your client's being inflexible, and that didn't sit with me well at all. I went, no. There's something else going on, and that led me into an area of energy psychology, which was more about the role of the body and the role of energy within the body, and how that connects to what we typically think as the enskulled brain to form what we call what Dr. Dan Siegel would call the mind, which is, you know, the integration of both. And therefore you start treating the whole person. And I started seeing, that's the missing piece of the jigsaw. And then I just went off on maybe I need to do psychotherapy. You know, maybe I need to, because I'd gone through my own therapy processes. I was working through qualifications to sort of clean up some of my back issues that, you know, when you come in front of a client, you need to be a blank canvas and not triggered by them. And that took me into that space of learning about different modalities, what was similar about them, what was different. Of course, I did actually compared and contrasted some of the primary modalities. So you discovered that a word used in CBT was this thing in psychodynamics, and you learned that, you know, in Gestalt it was this, and in this modality it was something else. And you go, this is really interesting. It's like being able to speak multiple languages, or to have an appreciation, so that you could ride in a meta position above it and go, okay, I can collect tools. And I guess that's what I've really been doing, is collecting tools and understanding and experiences, you know, under professional coaching supervision and also professional psychotherapy supervision, to work with people working through difficult challenges. And I guess the one of the main turning points that took me into the work I do now is really, I had this thing where I love playing music. I always loved playing music as a kid, but put me in front of an audience and I'd freeze. I'd be like, well, what's that all about? My immediate assumption was, oh, that's got to be fear. You know, I tell you what, I'll go out and I'll conquer the fears that I've got. So I knew I was scared of heights. So I thought, right, how do I conquer a fear of heights? I know, I'll do a parachute jump. And I did a parachute jump. I did a tandem jump, which was great. And it was terrifying going up to 12,000 feet in the plane because fear of the unknown. But I'm strapped to someone and I'm thinking, well, he doesn't want to die, so I'm not going to die. And of course, the first 10 seconds you drop out of the plane, and that's terrifying. And then you go into this free fall position. And I promise you, it's the most peaceful thing I've ever experienced. It's ridiculous. I still can't explain it. And I think it's because the sensory system's overwhelmed and you actually you're moved into a flow state. And when we're in flow, we lose all sense of time, we lose sense of what's around us, and we just enjoy the experience. So that happened. So I did that, and I was like a kid on a fairground. It's like you get to the bottom of the ride, and you go, yeah, that was fantastic. Can we do it again? And they're like, no, you can't do that now. So I conquered that fear, and I went, okay. And then I went back to try and play music, and I went, no, I still freeze. And I was kind of like, oh goodness, what's that? So what else am I afraid of? I know, let's walk across fire. Let's learn to do that. So I did that, and I've done five different firewalks now. This is something different. So I did a project basically as part of my qualification to find out what it is, and it's this whole post-traumatic stress thing. It's learning how sensitizing events influence your interpersonal neurobiology. And as I dug into that, and I found ways to blend what we knew from Western psychology versus Eastern psychology and practices and spiritual practices, and try to bring the two together, plus what we understand with the body, then I started to go, I understand what's going on now. And then I was sort of into finding out, so what tools can I learn? What tools can I use? So things like, I mean, you'll know from the military, box breathing as a way of engaging the parasympathetic nervous system. So the breath being the connection between what's going on up here versus what's going on in the body. And that all made sense to me. So now I can play in front of people, and that was the solution. But that takes me to a place of, so, public speakers, people getting on stage going, I freeze, I do all that. And I started in that area. I worked with concert pianists, people in the music profession. But then I was more interested in this idea of trauma and trauma's impacts on the body, and how to help people loosen the emotional charge of that, to then be able to move past patterns of behavior and thinking that were creating drag on how they were able to live their lives.
Sure. And that's
kind of the story.
Yeah, that and I love that. First of all, before I was going to say what I was getting ready to say, I'd like to really applaud you on what you said in the very beginning. And this is what I try to help a lot of leaders understand through my coaching and a lot of my training that I do, especially for new managers, is that you were listening to a lot of, I'll call it white noise, because it's almost like white space on a slide, right? It's there, and all it is a distraction. So you were hearing people say, when you were trying to say, no, that there's something that I'm doing wrong with my coaching, I'm not getting through the way I need to, and everyone was telling you, no, it's your clients. Well, you kind of just let all that white noise drown out, and then you actually went on a journey of discovery to figure that out. And I applaud you for that, because a lot of people will just keep on doing what they're doing, or they'll just make minor adjustments without actually figuring out the best way to serve their clients, or to adjust to whatever the situation is. And so what I always tell leaders that, if there's a lot of things that aren't working out for you, you have to take a sense of ownership, which is what you did, and really look at yourself. It's hard to take that, whether it's existential or just a firm look in the mirror, and ask people, do whatever you have to do to figure out what you got to do to change to make yourself more effective. And you did all of those things. My goodness, I don't know if I've jumped out of a plane before, and I'm not super thrilled with it, so I don't know if I would ever go to that extreme again. But you did all of the things, and now you're equipped with tools that you need, or you feel you need, and it's working out for you to successfully go out there and do what you want to do and what people need actually. So I just want to applaud you for that. But
Well, I appreciate that.
Oh, well, of course. I mean, ownership is the one thing that I try to help my kids understand. I've always preached that from a young NCO. You know, that was the one thing that I had instilled upon me. You know, if things aren't working out for you, it's probably not everybody else. It's probably you.
Yeah, probably there's a pattern.
Yeah.
And it's you.
And it's it's the easiest concept, just like what you said. It's the easiest concept to understand, but it's the hardest, character trait to develop. And people really have to work at that, because we all start off selfish at one point in our lives, and we have, especially as kids, we have to work that out. But then now you're in this stage where, honestly, I kind of fell into it as an NCO, a sergeant when I was in the military, where you said that CBT is really the reframing and helping people through trauma and all of that stuff. That I know we'd had a conversation about this when we talked, but I kind of fell into that. That's just resiliency stuff. They're interchangeable, and they both work together. There's breathing, there's, whatever you have to do to calm yourself down and reframe what's going on. But, that has just been the most life-changing thing for me, to understand how to close your eyes, breathe a little bit, calm yourself down, and reframe. And, helping people with that, and now having the psychology knowledge that you have and everything else, it's gotta be probably, I don't know, life-changing for some of the people that you work with.
So I'd say two things. I'd say, first of all, it's like the journey to mastery. You never get there. And you keep going around in circles, and things still happen. And old patterns revisit you. And the difference is you can sit them on a sofa and go, hello, old friend, I know who you are. I know what you are. What do you need? What work do I now need to do? Because I am still a messy human being. It's not like I'm this saint. I go up, goodness me, anything but.
Of course, aren't we all?
But what it does is, going through that experience, it gives you a foundation that is absolutely rock solid, and says, I've walked the path. I know what that's like, and I know it's scary, but there is a way out, and there's no one path. It's like they say, there are many paths up the mountain.
Yep.
Just find the path that works for you, but find someone to not guide you, but accompany you. There's a difference, because a guide points the way, whereas someone who accompanies you just kind of sits there like a parent of a child learning to ride a bike for the first time. They hold on to the child to begin with, but eventually the hand is not actually touching them, but it's there for support if it's needed. And I think that's the thing. And I've been, the client you need to work with always shows up at the moment you need to grow and develop. So I remember the first time I worked with a client that had attempted to complete suicide. And I spoke to my supervisor at the time, and I said, I can't handle this. I'm not ready for this. What do I know? And who am I? And what if I get it wrong? And all those doubts and stuff. And I had the most amazing supervisor that said, no, just take it a step at a time. You know what you know. I'm here to support you when you're uncertain, and give you guidance and support, and to resource you. And just going through that process just makes you realize that everybody is going through something at some level. Whoever you meet, whoever you see, whoever you observe, everybody's dealing with something at some level. And it's important to be kind, and it's important to develop that compassion muscle, which is a testing thing.
Yes.
To develop compassion. If someone's blowing up in your face, having compassion when they're doing that, it's really difficult.
Instead of screaming back at them, take it a step back, right? Yeah.
And we live in this polarized world where it doesn't take a spark, but to set something ablaze in terms of this polarization and and there's no compassion, there's no listening, there's not enough willingness to sit and listen and say, maybe I could change my mind.
Well, that's where
Maybe,
that emotional intelligence comes in, right? That what you're talking about is a muscle that needs to be developed. You know, compassion, we all want to be compassionate. I hope we all want to be compassionate anyway.
I like to think.
Some of us probably don't, but
Well,
I would think that, you know, when you understand what EQ is and emotional intelligence, and then all the facets that get you there, you know, having to regulate your emotions, figure out where those emotions come from, and then really, you know, deal with it and understand all of that stuff, then you can't keep yourself calm when that true adversity comes your way, which is somebody screaming in your face. You're not equipped for that unless you've practiced, and you really have to put yourself through some stress to be able to handle somebody else's stress, in my opinion.
I would agree. You have to clean up your stuff so that you're not triggered, and you will always be triggered.
Yep.
And it's one of the reasons I do the martial arts practice. Is that you put yourself in an environment where you practice that. You know, someone is coming at you with a stressful experience. So how do you learn to breathe? How do you learn to observe? How do you learn to wait to the last minute? And then how do you learn to use that energy to restore harmony rather than trying to kick 7 colors of whatever out of them? And that is such a valuable training ground, because that then you become aware of how your body works or doesn't work and how it all works together. And, you know, so I think there is a certain amount of walking your talk, because it's, as I say, it's a journey, it's a path to mastery. And actually it's a path you just keep walking.
Yeah. Yeah. But you have to care about other people in order to walk that path.
I think so.
Well, yeah, I mean, we should. I mean, you're not going to be a coach just by sitting there running your mouth. And, you know, I've had coaches that call themselves coaches that's their main thing, is they want to sit there and give you advice for an entire hour instead of take that step back and listen, and then, you know, ask those guiding questions. Because at the end of the day, coaching is the teaching moments are done. Coaching, that's the first part of the process. The learning the new tools, there's a time and a place for that. But then the coaching is when you ask guiding questions so that people can really have a unique understanding of how to deal with these things on their own. Because otherwise they're not going to take a sense of ownership to do it. But I'm just happy that getting yourself there, that at that initial stage, when you had that person who wanted to commit suicide, the hardest thing to find is that mentorship, somebody who's going to help you get there as well when you're having struggles with dealing with these types of people. So, I mean, teaching, coaching, and mentoring is the most basic, but I think it's also the most valuable way to deal with everything. It's the crawl, walk, run process. You have to teach the tools. You have to help people understand the tools. And then when they have questions, you have to be there in the background as a mentor to make sure that you're having those discussions with them when they have questions.
Absolutely agree with that.
Yep. Yep. And that, so you just described all of that. And I, you know, for somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience in the coaching realm, that I think that's the most valuable place of it with it all, is to understand that if they're coaching, that means they already have a clear vision in their head for whatever they're trying to accomplish. You're just helping them get there. And
and they have the resources they need. That's the other thing, is they're just not necessarily connected to them, or they've never connected to them. They never realized they had them in the first place. So the job is really, how can I reconnect you? You hear this thing. It's like, oh, I've lost my confidence. And you kind of go, no, you haven't. You haven't lost your confidence. You are still that 1-year-old that ran around the room naked going, hey, mommy, daddy, look at me. Yeah, there's lots of, was that confidence? No, that was just an acceptance of who you were.
Oh, yeah.
At that state. And that person still exists within you. So how do we reconnect to that? It doesn't mean you're going to take your clothes off in the middle of a boardroom, but
oh, come on. You're no fun.
But it does mean you have the resource. The resource is there. So how do we reconnect you to that? It is the thing. And it's not me saying, I'll reconnect you. It's you do the reconnecting piece. We just create a space that allows you to do that with some safety, without judgment, to go, oh, I can change the way I think about this. And that then gives me new choices and new options. And therefore I can squeeze the juice out of life more than that. So there's that reconnection. But there's also that connection. There's those moments of the penny dropping where people go, oh, you mean I can do this? And I go, well, you're doing it. And they go, I can do this. Wow. And I learned that when I was teaching. There was a period, I'd been made redundant in 2012. And as I say, I'm a musician. So one of the things I did was I set up some teaching piano. And there was a young girl, she lovely, lovely girl, solicitor's daughter, worked really hard, very, very smart, exceeded at all her school classes, was an A student, an A+ student. But a lot of pressure comes with that. And she was using music as she was supposed to excel at music. And what we were doing was we were learning a particular piece of music. And there's about a period of 6 or 7 weeks where she come in and she was getting better gradually. But there was one week that she came in and she sat down and she said, I can play this. And I went, great, let me hear. I said, to tell you what, you put the music on the stand. I'm not going to watch you. I'm going to turn away and I'm just going to listen. Play it to me. She played it, no error whatsoever. It was beautifully played. And I turned around and I looked at her. There was a tear in her eye. And she said, I really can play this, can't I? And I went, that's it. That's connecting to her resource.
Beautiful. That's
that
beautiful.
Was that. And I remember that when I'm thinking about trying to understand when a client has really connected to the resource. It's like, yeah, I can play this. And you kind of go, yes, you can. What did I do? I didn't do the work to play it. You played it.
Yep. Oh man, that's beautiful. And I'll be honest with you, my daughter's a musician. She plays the euphonium, and so
wow.
And she's also a straight A student in school. Mm-hmm. And so when you said that, it reminded me of her, because there are many times where she comes up to either me or my wife and she'll say almost that exact same thing. And it's not necessarily with her music, but it's something that she doesn't feel like she can even get started with. Mm-hmm. And you know, that we've seen that aha moment quite a few different times where it's not just her, it's everybody, right? We all have these limiting beliefs that we, honestly speaking, either we believe somebody else that says something to us, or we make the crap up and it just kind of sticks. And so we got to get up over that somehow. And that's all that was she had a limiting belief. And so you helped her through that. And she realized after she played that she can play beautifully. That's awesome.
And she had all the resources she needs within her.
Yep.
You know, so all clients have that. Really, it's about providing a space to help them either reconnect or connect.
Correct. And we're just over 30 minutes, which is fine. I don't stick firm to my 30 minutes, but I have to ask you, because you're my guest and this is my housekeeping rules. I always have to treat my guests. And so what is one message that if you could pass on to my audience that you think would be valuable? Or some people pass on a promotion, but a message, a promotion, whatever, something that's all about Paul that you'd like to pass on to my audience.
If I took a pen and I scratched the back of your skin on your hand, we all bleed the same color. We are more the same than we think we are. We need to celebrate our sameness, and we need to celebrate our differences too and appreciate them. So be kind.
Be kind. Mm-hmm. Yes. And I'm not trying to steal your glory. Is it okay if I add just a little bit to that?
Of course.
Yes. So you never know what kind of a day another person is having.
Exactly.
And so that kindness that Paul speaks of is exactly what it takes to sometimes take somebody who's potentially even suicidal to maybe even having, you know, that complete change in life perspective in that moment. So always be kind, because you never know what somebody else is going through.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have to say that a lot of my friends are veterans. So, you know, there's some stuff that goes on there at post service that, you know, you never know what's going through a person's head. So, Anyway, thank you, Paul, for being a guest on my show and coming on here and speaking to my audience live. It's an amazing thing to do, and I'm happy you decided that you wanted to do that.
JJ, you're a most generous host. Thank you ever so much for giving me the opportunity to be here today and share some of my experience and thinking.
Of course. Hopefully we can grab another call sometime soon.
I'd love to do that.
Great. Well, for the audience, thank you for watching, whether it's now or in the future. I saw a couple people pop up while we were live here chatting. Nobody commented. Otherwise, we would have interacted with you. But regardless of whether you watch this now or later, please like this video, subscribe to whatever platform you see this on. But the most important thing is to make sure you leave a comment below. I will, especially on LinkedIn, I will tag Paul in the comments. We would be happy to interact with whatever questions or comments you may have, just because all of the things we talked about, especially coaching and helping people through their emotional battles, it's all very, very important. But thank you, and we'll see you all next time on an episode of Victory Leaders Lounge.